Our hope is not in strength of life or financial prosperity or education or employment. Our hope is not in money or kings or kingdoms or power. Our hope's not even in education, though I value it. Our hope is in Christ, right? Our hope is the Lord. Remind yourselves of the truth. God made the world and put Adam and Eve in a perfect garden. When they sinned, it broke apart. It disintegrated. It fell apart and tore apart. Right? What then? Would money bring it back together? Would education bring it back together? Friends, if we could educate sin from the world, we'd be well on our way. But just what we prayed about today, there was education involved. If we could buy our way out of problems, we could be well on our way. But we can't. We can't buy our way out of problems. If we could sit down as nations of all languages and get along, we'd be out of our problems. But it doesn't happen. Right? We kind of paint this picture in the world that just the United Nations can solve so much. Okay? The very idea that you could take somebody from every nation and put them on an elevator, close the door, and send them all to the same floor, that does not create unity. It doesn't. But we would deceive ourselves to think that. Right? We need something greater, and that's where Christ comes in. God saw the sin. God knows the sin and knows there's only one answer, and that's Jesus Christ, and He sends His Son for us. And we may think, oh, sin's not that big a deal. It is. It's huge. The smallest to the largest is all an affront to God. And so we need Christ and His mercy. Psalm 34:18 that I read for you earlier, David also writes in that psalm, I will bless the Lord at all times. The Lord's near the brokenhearted. I will bless the Lord at all times. Taste and see that the Lord is good. In some sense, we need a brokenness that strips us of all our comforts so that we're brokenhearted, that the Lord may be near us. So friends, more than prosperity and activity, I would say where you see brokenness, the Lord is near. Right? When you see someone confessing sin, calling out to God, save me, the Lord is near. Practically, what do I do with all that? I pray regularly, Lord, help me to taste and see that you are good, and not just get caught up in things of this life. Our hope is not that we're rescued from suffering, but our hope is that God is with us in the suffering. Verses 1 to 14, there's going to be suffering. But then, second, God reveals His vision. 15 to 17, God reveals His vision. He sends Gabriel, understand, O Son of Man, that the vision is for the time of the end, and He's going to unpack it. God does not leave us to wonder what all this means. He's active, He's attentive, He's caring, He's revealing. God will give you understanding of His Word. And I do want to say something here. We're reading about these visions and dreams of Daniel's. Let's be clear. Even throughout the Bible, the times that God speaks through visions and dreams, there are quite a few listed in the Bible. But more often than not, we see God's people searching the Scriptures. That's normative. And then when we scale it back, let's face reality. There's only one Daniel that got this vision. So if you're out there saying, God, give me a vision, give me a dream, speak to me, that's not normative, how God speaks. There was one Daniel. None of us are Daniel. I mean, you may be named Daniel, but you're not Daniel of the Bible, right? God's normative is to say, here's my word, read this. and he always speaks through it. Always. So while he reveals this vision, we shouldn't get caught up looking for visions. God is not a mysterious hope. He's not ephemeral. He's present, he's active, and he reveals himself in his word. And here's the third point. He reveals the vision and God will save. That's Daniel 8:18 to 26. God knows the future. He shows the rise of the Media and Persian Empire, which Daniel would experience. And he predicts the rise of Alexander the Great, who came quickly on the Media and Persians and defeated them, and raged and trampled their empire out. Right? And then he dies young and it divides in four. And so, reigning from 175 BC to 163 BC is the man I told you about, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, stretching his empire, verse 9, south toward Egypt, east toward Persia, and toward the glorious land of Israel. Daniel was seeing into the future. And this ruler, he persecuted the Jews greatly and named himself God Manifest, Epiphanes. Right? This vision for what was to come, at the very least, it's calling God's people to faithfulness. And there's a reminder in here for us. When God says something will go a certain way, it will. It will. And on a very basic level, if we follow Christ, we will be blessed. We will know the Lord and enjoy fellowship with Him. If we reject Christ, we will be cursed. This is a very basic level, but it's how God says it goes. So when God says something will happen, it will. All right, so I'm geeking out on the history here. I'm sorry. Geeking out on the history. I'm sorry. So this little horn, Epiphanes, he's anti-God's people. He's got a spirit of Antichrist about him. There's also a little bit in here because Gabriel says the vision is for the time of the end, right? So there's a little bit about the end in here. Now, we can go into rabbit holes on the end of the world. We can go into so many rabbit holes on the end of the world. And we can go down rabbit holes until the end of the world, right? We can. So let me just give you some thoughts here. If you're wondering about the end of the world, if you're studying